Welcome to part 2 of debunking the Ariel school alien invasion. Unfortunately, there's just too much going on in this story to do it all in one video, so I do recommend that you start with part 1. If you don't, because you're a rebel and you like living dangerously, you're probably going to be as confused as this guy.
What is happening?
Well, you know, me and Gene, we really don't know what we're dealing with here, man. We just might blow the whole planet up, you know.
Fatality.
Anyways, let's just recap what we went over in part 1. We discussed the UFOMania that was running wild across Zimbabwe at the time. We proved with TV schedules that these kids absolutely had access to TV shows and movies about UFOs and aliens. And if we want to say that they didn't watch TV, newspaper articles at the time and the radio were talking about UFOs and aliens as well. However, we know that at least one of these kids had a TV at home. We also spoke about Harvard psychiatrist Johnny Mack and his alien abduction obsession, and how he was exposed by a Boston journalist for just fucking believing whatever bullshit people told him about alien abductions. So it should raise some eyebrows that this guy eventually comes to the Ariel school and then he says, well yeah, it seems like the kids are telling the truth. Well, that's really bold of him to say when he believed a Boston journalist who said she was abducted by aliens and she saw JFK and Nikita Khrushchev in the spaceship. But yeah, we also covered the first batch of BBC interviews and how they broke all the guidelines on interviewing children. But hey, this is one of the most compelling UFO stories ever told. Actually though, like I said in part 1, I think the story is a good example of why people like me default to not trusting UFO stories. You could just make a 10-minute YouTube video about all the weird shit that the MUFON investigator claims about this story, and you can finish it off by saying, this story is unexplainable. How do you explain 62 children seeing a UFO in Zimbabwe?
What is happening?
Well, I don't fucking know, because I don't have all the information, because you have neglected to mention a lot of very important things in this short 10-minute video. On the other hand though, the longer this video becomes, the less compelling the story becomes. We are able to get the big picture, we're able to put all of this information into context, and we're able to find opinions by experts who are not selling a book called Abductions, Human Encounters with Aliens. It's not that I don't believe that there is other life out there in the universe, it is a big fucking universe. It's just that I believe that these stories are bullshit. If you don't and you think these stories are true, more power to you, man. With all that out the way, let's get back to our timeline. So, moving on to Tuesday the 20th of September, Cynthia Hind, the MUFON investigator that we're going to be judging in this video, like my cat judges me when I don't feed her on time, yep, that lady, she visits the school and she brings Tim Leach and a BBC film crew along with her. According to the queen of UFO debunkers, Charlie Weiser of $3 Kit, Cynthia spoke with headmaster Colin Mackey, discussing the possibility of alien life and alien visitation. Because if there's anyone in the world who has some information regarding that, it's a school headmaster in Zimbabwe. But Cynthia then interviews 6 children. She interviews Nathaniel, Luke, Trevor, Daniel, Emily, and Charity, and she interviews them all together in the staff room. Which, as we discussed before, is breaking one of the established guidelines about interviewing children. You need to interview them separately. But also, fair enough, this isn't a fucking murder investigation, but also, this does pollute the testimonies. Anyway, she then goes on to look at all of the kids' drawings, which they drew on Monday, the 19th of September 1994, and not on Friday, the 16th of September 1994, when they said that they saw a fucking spaceship. So an entire weekend had passed before they drew these things. Now, a lot of the 10-minute YouTube videos like to claim that the kids drew these drawings immediately after seeing the spaceship on Friday, and that is provably false. So I have to ask, if these stories are so compelling, why do you have to lie?
That doesn't work for me, brother. You know.
If it's not a lie and it's just a mistake, that's fine. But mistakes don't make compelling UFO stories. But anyway, after looking at all the kids' drawings, Cynthia then interviews 2 more girls named Emma and Leisel. And shockingly, despite the fact that Leisel says that she's in grade 6 and her drawing says that she's in grade 6, this film documentary thing says she's in grade 4. So I'm sure it was just another mistake, because everyone is so fucking excited about hearing about the alien that these children saw. Now, the grade 7's interview with Cynthia is excruciatingly long, so I'm just letting you know that I'm going to cherry pick shit that stands out. However, if you want to go read the full thing, go to $3 Kit, Charlie Wise's website. She's laid all of these interviews out very nicely so that you can read them for yourself. The reason I'm going to cherry pick shit is because it's just more of the same bullshit that we got from Tim Leach. The interviewers clearly just want to hear the children say, "I saw a fucking alien," and then give them detention for swearing. Anyway, Cynthia starts off by chatting with Nathaniel. So Cynthia starts off by asking, "What did you see?" "I saw a sort of like ship, landed on the ground." By the way, this is the closest that any of the children come to saying that they saw the spaceship in the actual action of landing on the ground. However, Nathaniel says that he saw it landed on the ground, as in past tense. It was there, landed on the ground. Cynthia then asks, "Why did you say ship? Did it have a shape?" "Yes." "Like what?" It had a round top and it was flat like that around the sides." "What was around the sides?" "Just sort of like a platform coming around the side." "Did you see anything else?" "Yes, we saw a black man running around." Cynthia then asks, "A little man or what?" "A little man or what?" It is abundantly fucking clear here that all Cynthia cares about is getting these kids to say alien. If the kids saw something weird, I'm sure they would tell you without you needing to pry it from them like you're a fucking detective trying to solve a murder. He said a black man running around, which, if you remember what Guy said in part 1, he said he saw a lightish man. He said he wasn't very, very dark, he was quite lightish. So I have to ask all the 10-minute YouTube videos again, how the fuck are these reports the same? We already have a black man, a quite lightish man, and a long thing on a silver thing. A long thing that looked like a stick. These are the first 3 children interviewed, and they have all described the being quite differently.
"I've stood around, I've listened to everything you had to say. Yep, you've got me mad now."
Well, let's just calm down again. There's a lot to get through here, and I'm gonna destroy my voice, getting loud like this. Gonna end up like Negan, coming over to take Rick's stuff.
Rick!
So Nathaniel tries to answer Cynthia's question about a little man or what, by saying that from where we looked, he was about this small. He indicates 1 meter high. But he goes on to say, but we were quite a way away, so he was about our size. So how tall is the average grade 7 child? Well, about 1.5 meters tall. Now that would be consistent with what Guy said in part 1. He said that the thing was just a little bit taller than him. So Cynthia then asks, could you see his face? Nathaniel says, no. At this point, I assume Cynthia becomes bored of Nathaniel because he's not telling her what she wants to hear. So she then starts chatting up another kid named Luke, who you also might remember from part 1 because he is the kid that ran up to the tuck shop lady Alison Kirkman and told her that a UFO had landed just beyond the school grounds. He said, quote, "There's a little man running around in a one-piece suit with a band around his head. Come quickly and see." Now, I'm quite excited to hear about this UFO that Luke saw and this alien wearing a headband, because that's something I've never heard before. So what did Luke say? What did Luke tell Cynthia? Luke said, quote, "I didn't see the spaceship." Huh? Okay, fair enough. Maybe he just heard that the UFO landed from a friend, and all he saw was an alien wearing a headband. Luke goes on to say, "I didn't see the spaceship, but I saw the little black guy. He was all black, and it looked like he had long hair." Cynthia then asks, could you see his face? Why are you so obsessed with his face? Now, I'm not sure if she's aware right now just how far away these kids actually were. Where they reported the thing to be was about 220 meters away from the playground. That is very far away to make out any details. But Luke answers the question by saying no. He could not see the alien's face. Cynthia Hind then asks, just in a black, what was he wearing? Luke says it just looked like he had long hair, and he was all black. So, like a Tokoloshi. And hey, I can cherry pick a few of my favorite drawings from these children to support my Tokoloshi theory. Amazing! Look at that, I think we just figured this one out. I think we solved this mystery. I think that the kids at Ariel saw a Tokoloshi, which I'm not going to explain again. Watch part 1. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. Bye-bye. Okay, well, you chose to stay, and it's entirely on you that you hear what Cynthia asks the 7th grade child next. Cynthia asks, but wasn't he naked? Huh? It's a weird question to ask. Luke says no. Cynthia asks, what did he have on? Luke then says no, that's all. That's all you could see. So I'm guessing that we're not going to hear about this headband. But Cynthia says, you could only see that. Luke says, yeah. Cynthia then asks, why? Was he among the trees? At this point, another kid named Trevor then jumps in, and Luke never says anything to Cynthia ever again. So what the fuck happened to the UFO and the headband then? Well, either Luke just forgot about it, or Cynthia fucking lied. Which one do you think is more likely? Actually, you don't have to, because I can show you what Cynthia says in her book, UFOs Over Africa. Quote, Luke reiterated what he had told Mrs. Kirkman earlier about the small man with a band around his head.
Not only are you a hot dog, a grandstander, a showboat, and a prima donna, but you're a liar.
You know, I've been thinking a bit lately about how I used to say that it's fucking stupid to believe in these weird, fringe paranormal stories. And I'll admit that I was wrong to say that. I shouldn't have said that it's stupid to believe in them, or imply that stupid people believe in them. What's become more clear to me over time is that people's trust and want to believe has been taken advantage of by these grifters and con artists. They've just been fooled and lied to. And it's not their fault. It's the grifters' fault. It's easy to create a myth like this Ariel school thing. I literally put no effort into connecting a Tokoloshi to this case. I could have just made up a bunch of shit that one of the kids summoned it ate a pebble, and that's why it just went. Just went. More down into the valley, like Guy said in part 1. But as you can see by the length of most of my videos, it takes more time and effort to dispel bullshit than it does to create it. But you cannot cover a case like the Ariel School UFO in 10 minutes. But, whatever. Let's hear what Trevor has to say. So Cynthia just asked Luke why he could only see all black, and Trevor jumps in and says it was just about like a shadow. We just saw a shadow going. Excuse me for interjecting yet again, but this is yet another very different description of the alien. First, it was a very lightish man, then it was a long thing on a silver thing, then it was a black man, and now it's a shadow.
What is happening?
Well, you know me and Gene, we really don't know what we're dealing with here, man.
So anyway, Cynthia asks Trevor, and you also saw this creature. Well, it's called a Tokoloshi, Cynthia. You should have known that. You were South African, and you had to leave South Africa to go investigate UFOs elsewhere because we don't have any UFOs. All we have are Tokoloshis. Trevor says yes. We were all yes. Cynthia then asks, what do you think it was? Yes, let's encourage the child to speculate. Trevor says, I don't know really. Cynthia then asks, did you see the thing, whatever it was, land? Luke starts shaking his head no. Then he looks surprised when Trevor answers, and he continues shaking his head no. Trevor says, yes, after the bell rang, I was walking up to the class and I just saw flashes in the side of my eye. And that's really all I saw. But you didn't see anything on the ground. No, I saw the shadow? Yes. Amazing! This is the 5th child in a row now that says that they did not see the UFO landing. Like as in the process of coming down from the sky and landing on the ground. It was just there. But just like Luke's headband, the UFO coming down from the sky is another detail that Cynthia will just fucking make up later, saying that the children saw this thing coming down and landing in the trees. What a shitload of fuck. Now most of the other kids in the room say more or less the same thing. Big fucking surprise. This is why you shouldn't interview kids together, but I want to highlight the interview with Charity. Now Cynthia asks, did you also see? Charity says yes. What did you see? I saw something silver on the ground amongst the trees and a person in black, and that's all I saw. You saw a person alongside the silver thing. Yes. What did the silver thing look like? It looked like a saucer, but the shape wasn't really round. Despite Charity using the word saucer to describe this UFO, Cynthia asks, had you heard about UFOs before this? So what the fuck happened here? When someone says something like this, it looked like a saucer, but the shape wasn't really round, you all of a sudden don't ask what shape was it, what form was it. Now you're like, the fuck does Charity even know about UFOs anyway? Have you even heard of UFOs before, Charity? Anyway, Charity is the only person Cynthia asks this question to in this room right now, and as far as we know, Charity is the only one who said no. Despite describing the UFO as a saucer. Now, if we were to be honest with ourselves, we would say, well, kids and people in general all have different interests. For example, I know that Nickelback has millions of fans and they've sold millions of records, but I still just don't like them. Their music just doesn't work for me, brother. But at the same time, I know that there's people who hate the music that I like and probably wouldn't even call what I listen to music. And that's okay, because we all like different shit. I'm a rock and metal guy, but I also like Lady Gaga. I also like World of Warcraft soundtracks, even though I don't play WoW. And I also like shit like lo-fi. I like a lot of different shit, but I also don't like all of the shit. Otherwise, I'd probably like Nickelback, because they're rock. Point is, people have different interests. I know that not every kid who's watching TV is watching movies about UFOs and aliens, the same way I'm able to realize that not every person who loves rock and metal loves Children of Bodom. It's just not everybody's cup of tea. But holy mother of God, have you tried listening to that shit while in the gym? These guys are the reason that you aren't allowed to listen to music while doing competitive sports. Listening to this shit gives you super strength. You'll be there on a Monday afternoon, you'll be at your bench press machine, and you'll be benching more than all the roided out gym bros combined, and you haven't even broken a sweat yet. And that's when you notice out the corner of your eye all the weird looks you're getting from the gym bros. They're like, he's not wearing a gold gym sleeveless vest. How is he doing that? Then on your next set, your phone auto plays Nickelback, and suddenly you're dying. The bar is trying to strangle you, and the roided out gym bros have to come and help you. That's when they ask you,
Are you shitting me? You don't have any pounds?
just Children of Bodom. Anyways, the point of this joke is to prove once again how easy it is to weasel whatever the fuck I want into a story. Even if it isn't true. Just like Cynthia Hind and all the fucking grifters at MUFON do with their UFO books. But Mystorian, what did you say that isn't true? Who knows? Maybe I love Nickelback. Well, actually, that lie is a weight too heavy for my shoulders to carry, so I'll admit it's the bench press thing. I don't even go to the gym. So back to Cynthia Hind's question. She asks Charity, had you heard about UFOs before this? Charity said no, despite the fact she described the UFO as a saucer. And then Cynthia asks her, you didn't know anything about it, so was it something quite new to you? Yes. Next question from Cynthia, were you afraid? Why not? Why did you call it a saucer if you had never heard about UFOs before? Anyway, she answers the question, were you afraid, with yes. What did you do? Did you run to fetch the teachers, or you just stayed with the other children? I stayed with the other children. Pretty brave. I would have left if I saw a UFO, because I've watched Mars Attacks and Independence Day. I know that this shit never ends well. Anyway, the whole transcript of this interview is on Charlie's website, on $3 Kit. So go there if you want to read the entire thing. What I want to do now is move on to the interviews with the 6th graders, Emma and Leisel. These interviews are important because they will change when Johnny Mac comes to the school in 2.5 months' time from now. Now firstly, Cynthia interviews these two girls, Emma and Leisel, while other kids listen in. Once again, failing to follow the established guidelines on how to properly interview children. But either way, there's more shit than that to be concerned about in these interviews, so let's take a look through them and see why. So Cynthia starts off by interviewing Emma, and just to let you know, Johnny Mac would get Emma to tell him 2.5 months later that the alien spoke to the kids telepathically. So let's see what Emma says about that here. Spoiler alert, nothing. Cynthia starts off by saying, because your drawing was particularly interesting, they have asked me about it. In your drawing, you've got not only the main object there, but you've got several others. Now, did you see these coming down? Emma says, no. This is the 6th child in a row now that said they did not see them landing. Cynthia then asks, did you see them in the sky? Emma says, I saw them disappear. They went up 1 meter from the ground and then they just disappeared. So once again, a fucking Tokoloshi is a better description of this thing than an alien spaceship is. Just putting that out there as a possible theory, you know? Cynthia then goes on to say, they went 1 meter up and they disappeared. And you saw this creature. Yes, he was very, very shiny black. This is yet another description of what this thing looked like. Are you not compelled? I'm not fucking compelled at all. Cynthia then reiterates, shiny black. Emma then reiterates as well, shiny black. Cynthia then asks, suit? Kind of suit? Would you say it was like an ordinary suit? Was it like what Mr. Mackey's wearing? No. Or what would you call the type of clothing? Emma then starts to think. She then says, I'm not sure, but he was... Cynthia then cuts Emma off here to ask her if he was wearing a diving suit. Firstly, it seems quite obvious that Emma was going to say, I'm not sure, but he was really shiny. But you know what? That's me putting words in these kids' mouths. Fuck knows what she was going to say. We will never know what she was going to say because Cynthia cut her off. Most compelling UFO story ever. What a bunch of fucking bullshit. Now clearly, Emma does not know what this thing was wearing, and I'm willing to bet that she would have never even said, oh yes, like a diving suit, if Cynthia never brought it up. But whatever, let's see what else Emma has to say. Cynthia asks her, have you ever seen the divers going into the sea? Oh yes, like that. Amazing. Was it like that, or was it like an overall or a tight-fitting suit? It was tight-fitting. It was tight-fitting. And it was shiny. Yes. Could you see his face? Well, I only saw a glimpse of it. And you don't remember any individual features. Well, I only remember that his eyes were quite big. Eyes were big. And were you afraid? I was a little afraid. And what did you think it was? I don't know. I just thought it was some kind of alien from a different planet. So you knew about UFOs? Yes. You've watched on television? Yes. You think that influenced you? Emma then begins to think and she's going, And then Cynthia cuts Emma off again because I assume we cannot have this child admit that seeing UFOs and aliens on TV influenced her. That's just not going to work for the BBC, brother. So let's give Emma an alternative option here, and Cynthia asks her, or you weren't thinking about it when you... Emma then cuts Cynthia off and says, I wasn't thinking about it. Fair enough. I guess we'll just have to take your word for it. Because honestly, nothing that Emma said makes me think that this was an alien. But it seems that Cynthia was satisfied with this discussion with Emma, because she then moves on to Leisel. She asks Leisel, and what did you see? Well, I saw a silver sort of thing, and it was shaped, and then Leisel circles her fingers together, and then she says, it was like lying down like this on the side. And I saw a black man. He was just in black, and he had big eyes. Show me with your hand how big the eyes were. Leisel then makes rings over her eyes with her fingers, and she says they were shaped something like that. What did you think it was? Well, I thought twice. I thought it was an alien, and then I thought maybe it was the gardener or someone. Cynthia says, oh, you first thought it was an alien, and then you thought it was the gardener. Leisel says, yes. Cynthia then says, oh, well, I'd like to look at the gardener. Thank you very much. Don't know why you're so excited, Cynthia. I'm pretty sure the gardener is just a human being. Anyways, based on what has been reported here, there is nothing so strange that it cannot be explained by very normal, very earthly sources. Considering how far away the kids were, and the fact that none of them saw the thing coming in and landing, it really could have just been people in the bushes collecting materials for something. They could have come in a car or a truck and sunlight was reflecting off the windows and the man went outside, looked around for shit, got back in the truck and drove further into the trees, causing the windows to get cast in shadow and stop reflecting sunlight. Is that impossible? Well, according to these fucking people, they think, well, there's no roads out there, so why the fuck would a car be out there? Well, okay, let's take a look at where the kids said they saw the spaceship on a map then. Oh, wow. What a surprise, there are dirt roads there. I suppose cars would never use those. Those are made for the aliens. Moving on now to Cynthia's examination of the landing site to see if they found anything weird there. Spoiler alert, no. So Cynthia, Colin Mackey, the headmaster, Tim Leach of the BBC, and Gunther Hofer, Cynthia's assistant, go out and look around and find literally nothing. So I won't bore you to death with that, but ultimately, Gunther doesn't detect any abnormal radiation and finds no physical evidence of a craft or an object landing anywhere. In this picture here, Cynthia is asking Colin Mackey if the craft landed in this area with all these broken chutes. Mackey and two of the children both say no. It didn't land there, it was further out to the left. According to Charlie Weiser again, after no landing traces or radiation are found at the site, Tim Leach interviews Cynthia and her assistant Gunther, and Cynthia appears to have something to prove after failing to convince the British of Broadhaven. That is a completely different school UFO sighting that I just couldn't give less of a fuck about. Anyway, Cynthia has the gall to tell Tim Leach, well, I certainly believe the children. She then starts yapping about this Broadhaven UFO, and she says the British didn't believe it, although I went down there 3 times. Well, I don't really know what to say about that, but there's 13 seasons of The Curse of Oak Island, and there is still no treasure. And it's not that I don't believe that there's no treasure buried there, it's just that I don't care. However, if they did find the treasure, I'd say that's fucking cool. Good for you guys. Going to Broadhaven 3 times means nothing. If there were any compelling evidence about a UFO landing here in Zimbabwe, as in, like, there is no other explanation at all, like, wow, this evidence makes no fucking sense, then yeah, people like me wouldn't have anything shit to say. I'm just not a fan of people trying to bullshit me. Anyway, Cynthia goes on to say that Broadhaven and Ariel are a very similar incident. She says that we have some extremely interesting pictures, the children's drawings I suppose you're talking about, and there's certainly some things that they've told me that they couldn't have known about. Impossible. Well, I've told you pretty much everything noteworthy. What exactly could they have not known about? Diving suits? Long things on silver things? What exactly is impossible here? Cynthia, of course, does not elaborate. This is genuine frustration. So yeah, I'm kind of getting over the UFO shit. Probably gonna go back to roasting ghosts and Ed and Lorraine Warren again soon. That sounds like fun. But Tim Leach asks Gunther and Cynthia how skeptical they are, and Cynthia says, quote, "Oh, definitely. I'm skeptical too. I'm not I'm not at all that gullible." Only thing that worries me is how long this was on the ground. There is a missing time element, which we haven't been able to go into yet, but it's something I would like to discuss with the headmaster, Mr. Mackey. The fuck are you talking about now? What missing time? The whole thing lasted about 15 minutes. Mr. Mackey already confirmed that, okay, the kids saw the thing during recess, and then came to the staff and said we saw a long thing on a silver thing. Jesus Christ, man. Anyway, after examining all the children's drawings and hearing what the children had to say, to the surprise of no one, Cynthia reports that all the children told her the same story and all the drawings were believe that this would be impossible if this event never happened. So let's finally take a look at all of these fucking drawings, shall we? Now I'll just let you know that I don't have anything profoundly interesting to say about any of these drawings. However, people try to use these drawings as proof that all of these children saw the same UFO and the same alien. Now, most of these things look very different to me, like the first drawing here by Claire. Claire says that we saw aliens in tight black suits, so that's pretty consistent, faces exposed, who seem to be walking around in slow motion. So fair enough, that is consistent. However, she says you couldn't really see the ship because it was like a huge light. Then, in the next drawing by Daniel, you have this massive fucking camper van thing with 2 aliens sitting on top of it. So can anyone tell me how the fuck that is the same thing? In our next drawing here by Fun Guy, he drew this really cool looking spaceship. It looks fucking awesome. That's a great looking spaceship. Problem is, Bad UFOs blog says that it looks remarkably similar to the spaceship from the Invaders TV show from 1967 and 1968. The other problem is that it looks very different from the other two drawings already. His alien also looks fucking awesome, but it also looks very different to the other aliens that we've seen already. If we move on to Leisel now, who said that she thought that the alien was actually the gardener, what kind of fucking gardener is flying around in this thing? Well, maybe the gardener from the Lost in Space TV series from 1965, because Leisel's drawing looks remarkably similar to the Jupiter 2 from that TV show. Next is Emily's drawing, which looks remarkably similar to the spaceship seen in Delta Space Mission, which played on Friday afternoon after the kids apparently saw this thing. Next up is Selma's drawing, and I have no idea what the fuck is going on here, but I fucking love it, and I would frame it and put it on my wall. Next is Emma, who apparently saw 5 UFOs. Next up is Camilla, who said she didn't have a silver crayon, so she did it in yellow. Now, this is apparently a quote from her talking to a different ufologist, and she said, "A silver round thing and 3 in the sky and 3 black objects running around. They had big eyes like a cat's eyes, and they were really thin and tall." Well, so far, the common report is that they were the size of a 7th grader, so like 5 foot tall, or just a little bit taller than that. So, who knows how tall is here, but
What is happening?
Next up is Emily T, who was in grade 3 at the time, and her spaceship looks like a very typical UFO. A very flat UFO, but a typical UFO nonetheless. It's got these nice long landing legs and this nice long ramp so that the aliens can make this grand entrance just like they did in Mars Attacks. Now, Emily is one of the few that has actually given a testimony again as an adult, and what she has claimed is, quote, "We heard a high-pitched frequency sound, and we saw a flash and a craft. 2 beings were hopping along the side. They weren't touching the ground. They were almost like mimicking us. All of a sudden, they were in front of us." Moses, when in the blue hell did that happen? Because nobody mentioned that earlier. But Emily goes on to say that she would describe them as being within about an arm's reach of them. Telegraphic images then started going across her face, and the aliens communicated through the eyes. Amazing. I wonder why no other kid remembered that. The next one's from Robin, who said that the lights went all around it, and doors and anything like that were not visible. Again, I know that these are children's drawings, and I know these testimonies are coming from children, and I'm not trying to be a dick, so don't interpret it that way, but these reports are not the same. Emily's drawing clearly has a door and a fucking ramp leading to it, and if we go back to Leisel's drawing, it also had a door and a big fucking window. Now I'm going to move on to some of the unsigned drawings, so we have no idea which kid drew these things, but this one here, for example, literally has the letters UFO sprawled across the top of it, just in case any witnesses were not sure about what they were seeing, I'm sure. This one here just looks like something sparkling in the trees, and this one's my favorite. This one looks like a toilet roll. This one here is upside down, and this one might be Santa Claus going down a fucking chimney. But I don't know, go through them yourself if you ever have time and see what you think. To me, they look pretty different from each other, but sure, yeah, there are consistencies. A lot of them were drawing oval-shaped things and saying that the craft was silver, so sure, yeah, there are consistencies within that, but what would make it more compelling for me are the details. Unfortunately, the details aren't consistent enough for me to say, yeah, I'm willing to believe that the kids saw an alien spaceship. But just to prove to you that it's fucking ridiculous that these drawings are used to try to convince people that an alien spaceship landed in Zimbabwe, all we need to do is take a look at Oriana's drawing. I'm sure you remember Oriana from part 1. She's the girl that said she didn't really know what she saw, but whatever she saw looked like a stick. She said it looked like a long thing on a silver thing. Well, here's her drawing. We can see what I would assume is the alien sitting on what I would assume is its spaceship, wearing a funky polka dot spacesuit. Now, does this match her original report? No. She even said later in 2009 that she did not see the alien at the time. But the alien is still here in her drawing. I don't know why I found it funny. I just, these stories amuse me, you know? But here's something else you might find amusing as well. There were actually 2 sessions of drawings. The first one was at the request of Cynthia Hind, on Monday the 19th of September, so 3 days after the event, and the second session was at the request of John Mack, 2.5 months later. Now often, the two sets of drawings get mixed together. According to Gilles Fernandez, who has done a shitload of research on this case and has a doctorate in cognitive psychology, the ufological media often suggests that these 62 drawings are describing the same thing. However, Cynthia Hind herself speaks of only 30 to 40 drawings, and that she has 22 photocopies of the most explicit and clear drawings. I'm sorry, 22? So what happened to the other 8 or 18 or 40 drawings? Well. MUFON investigator Cynthia Hind is seen on video selecting the 22 drawings that she preferred. Video evidence corroborates this. Cynthia Hind is seen sorting the drawings into 2 piles based on what she believes more accurately represents an event that she did not witness. What a shitload of fuck. But what's funny to me is imagining the kids in the classroom waiting for their picture to get picked to go into the good pile. The kids sitting there like, yeah, the cream. Despite the fact that we know that Cynthia knew an entire weekend had passed and the kids only drew the UFOs on Monday, Cynthia boldly claimed in her book there had been no collaboration among them.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
I wish I was, Ghoul. I don't know how Cynthia can possibly think that the kids didn't speak about this UFO, because they told all of their fucking parents about it. They even went out to go look for the landing site. Who knows what they then did over the weekend. And then on Monday, they are interviewed in groups. I would assume that since nobody even separated the kids to interview them, why would they have then separated them for their drawings? And this should really be the end of the story right here. There is enough bullshittery here for me to say, what a bunch of fucking bullshit. I doubt the kids actually saw the same spaceship. But since I do think the story is a good example of how badly UFO investigations can be conducted, I think it is important to carry on. So yes, what can we say to the fact that these drawings are fairly inconsistent, despite the fact that Cynthia still cherry-picked her favorites? Well, I suppose we could say that these are children's drawings, and children have wild imaginations.
I think this is a bit imaginative. Colour. I don't think you could see that there.
Exactly! So this should really be the end of it right here. This probably never happened as they described it. However, as far as I can tell from all the articles on this case that I read, mostly everyone, skeptics and believers, all agree that the kids probably saw something. Yeah, I'm willing to concede and say, yeah, that does make sense. They probably did see something, but it was probably just a person wearing sunglasses and a car. I mean, there are dirt roads out there. If it wasn't a car, it could have been these buildings here and sunlight reflecting off the windows. However, I think the safest guess is that it was a car. Now, something that supports the idea that what they saw was something from the Earth is the fact that when the BBC camera crew went out there to film some shots, they somehow filmed a very bright light that obscured some of the film. So Tim Leach then sends his video to London, and it's pointed out to him that, hey, there's a very bright light here obscuring the film. So they recommend to Tim, go out there again with the camera crew and refilm. So Tim and his crew, they go out there again on a very similar clear day like it was the first time, and this time when they filmed, there was no evidence of the bright light in the background. Amazing. But what the fuck was that bright light they filmed? By the way, that little tidbit of information, the BBC having to refilm, comes from Cynthia Hind's own book, UFOs Over Africa. Now, I don't know how Cynthia interpreted this information, but when I hear that the BBC filmed a bright obscuring light in more or less the same place where these children claim to have seen an alien spaceship, I just want to ask, what the fuck are you saying here? Are you saying that the UFO was still out there when the BBC went to film? Or do you just not want to believe that children have an imagination and probably just saw a similar light as the BBC filmed and said it was a UFO? Because what are the fucking chances that aliens just so happen to land in the very location where the BBC will also film obscuring light just a few days later? Unless these aliens are just so smart that they don't want to be seen. In which case, running around in slow motion in front of 62 children seems kinda counterintuitive. Now, I'll be honest, I don't think we'll ever be able to figure out what the kids actually saw or what the BBC actually filmed without going to Zimbabwe for a few days and hanging around at a primary school.
The only problem is when I look at you, I just get the feeling you're not allowed within 50 yards of a school, you creep.
You're probably right, so I'll just speculate from home. If this light was still being seen days after the spaceship left, it stands to reason that it was probably just sunlight reflecting off of something. In my opinion, the safest guess is a vehicle of some sort. And let me just clarify, an Earth vehicle. But here's the most important thing. If you believe the children that said this was a spaceship that came from outer space and landed there, and this may sound really stupid, but just hear me out, but then you would also need to believe the children that said they saw it come from outer space and they saw it land there in the trees. Unfortunately, not a single child said they saw it landing. They all just said it was just always there. It was there, and then it wasn't. Not a single child said they saw that. So where the fuck does that information come from? This spaceship, seen in the actual act of landing, is a blatant fabrication by Cynthia Hind. In fact, what she really did was merge the basically unheard of Thursday sighting with the famous Friday sighting, and at this point, I feel like she did this intentionally. Before we cover more blatant fabrications and outright contradictions, let me just tell you what Cynthia told the kids. According to Charlie Weiser, the queen of the UFO debunkers, Cynthia tells the children that she's talking to London in America and that this could be the biggest story of the 20th century. Bigger than Roswell? Well, good luck with that. Cynthia then later appears miffed when Tim Leach interviews her after the disappointing evidence-free jaunt to the landing site, and that the British didn't take any interest in a playground sighting in Wales in 1979, even though she went over there 3 times. Cynthia then tells the children, quote, "I think it's time the world woke up, so people don't think I'm kooky." Well, this really shouldn't have anything to do with you, and this also puts a tremendous burden on the children to help her out by producing what she wants. Also consider that they're in a strict school setting and they're under additional pressure to perform correctly for the adults, especially when sat on a chair in front of the headmaster with a BBC camera in their face. In 3 subsequent reports that Cynthia Hind wrote, one for MUFON in December 1994 and 2 for her own newsletter in 1995, her reporting distorts the early testimonies of the children. These would be the first 2 days of recorded interviews. And we know that they're distorted because we have the children's actual words on camera. Now, Charlie Weiser says, "I'm not suggesting deliberate deception, only that in writing up the case, and in the absence of any pushback, she created a narrative that matched her bias." I'm not as polite as Charlie, and I'm beginning to think that Cynthia embellished the story knowingly and intentionally. According to Charlie again, quote, "Often her changes to the statements seem subtle, just a word here or there, but the implications are large." 2 examples that add to the UFO alien narrative are, contrary to the children's testimony, that all or many witnesses saw the object descend to the ground and land. The other example is that the man was consistently described as very short. In reality, no child reported seeing the UFO or the UFOs in the act of landing, and the man was described as the height of a 12-year-old or taller. And by the way, show Charlie Weiser some love. We need more people like Charlie Weiser in the world, so check out her website and follow her on her socials. It's now time to show you the bullshit. These quotes come from all the different places that Cynthia wrote about this case. Some come from her book UFOs Over Africa, some come from her newsletters, and some come from that MUFON report that she wrote in December 1994. Here's the first one. 62 children were in their playing field for the mid-morning break. Suddenly, they saw 3 silver balls in the sky over the school. They disappeared with a flash of light and then reappeared elsewhere. Several of the children saw disc-like objects coming in along the power lines. According to one boy, the object followed along this power line prior to landing. Now, where the fuck did she hear that? Did you hear that in any of the interviews that we covered? Or did the kids maybe change their story when they spoke to John Mack? Now, we haven't gone over the John Mack interviews yet because this is a great way of proving that they fucking changed their story and that these MUFON investigators fucking lied. What a bunch of fuck. Charlie says Cynthia is mixing up various testimonies here to create the impression that 62 children saw the objects arrive in the sky, disappearing and reappearing as they flew. Mystorian says this number, 62, is the commonly reported number of drawings. But when Cynthia went to visit the school, she only got about 30 or 40 drawings. So the rest of the drawings that had to have been done to get to this number 62 had to have been done in the weeks or months after. But now, since some of these drawings are not signed, how the fuck do you know that one child didn't draw 2 or 3 of these things? Ultimately, my question is, where do you get 62 witnesses from?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Charlie also says, quote, Cynthia reports one boy saw one object following the power lines, but in another report, it's several children. Now where in the blue hell did she get this bullshit about 3 silver balls and power lines? Well, it would appear that according to Cynthia's paraphrasing, one of the kids named Barry said that he saw the craft come into the school grounds along the electricity lines, and he had seen 3 objects flying over. Charlie says that Barry saw flashing red lights and disappearing, reappearing craft. Nobody else reported this. Certainly not 62 children. Also, Cynthia's phrasing suggests that Barry saw the craft land, because he said that he saw the craft come into the school grounds. So it seems that Cynthia's making the assumption that the objects in the sky descended into the bush and landed. However, as we already know, not a single child described a single detail about a UFO landing. Furthermore, recently Gunther Hofer, Cynthia's assistant, said that this UFO activity along the power lines was the day before. Basically, what Cynthia has done here is taken the Thursday sighting and merged it with the Friday sighting. Now, I counted all the examples on $3 kit. There are 32 more examples of blatant embellishment like this. I'm obviously not going to cover them all. Go to the website and read them yourself. I'm just going to quote a few of my favorites. Cynthia says that Guy, if you remember Guy from part 1, he's the guy that said that the alien was very lightish and not black like all the other children said. But Cynthia says that Guy said that the objects were disc-shaped and glinting among the trees before landing. He pointed out the landing place as at the 3rd pole from the school grounds, and the objects had come in along the electricity wires towards this area. What a bunch of fuck! We know that he didn't say that. Cynthia misreports Guy in order to bring his testimony in line. Guy specifically said that he never saw the object land. The question was, did you see it land? No, it was in the trees over there, like glinting. Guy also never reports multiple objects, nor did he see anything flying along the power lines, but Cynthia ascribes that testimony to him. Next example. Cynthia says that the consensus of opinion was that an object came down in the area the children indicated. Charlie says, well, Cynthia implies multiple children saw the UFOs descend for landing. In fact, the majority of testimonies don't include seeing the object in the sky or landing. It was simply there, a glint in the trees, a glimpse, or a flash in the corner of their eye. Next example. Cynthia says that Alison Kirkman told me the children came running into the tuck shop talking excitedly about a small man running around with a band around his head and a one-piece suit. Charlie corrects this bullshit by saying that Mrs. Kirkman, the lady in the tuck shop, said it was Luke who reported the sighting to her. The band around the man's head was dropped from the story, and none of the drawings show a band around the alien's head. Luke's drawing is not identified yet. And I don't know about you, but I would assume that it would be easy to spot Luke's drawing, since his alien should have a fucking headband. But no. 3 decades later, and we still don't know which drawing is Luke's. Amazing. Next example. Cynthia says in her MUFON report, then a small man, approximately 1 meter in height, appeared on top of the object. Charlie says, quote, in one of the most blatant exaggerations, Cynthia has inserted into the narrative short beings, because everyone knows alien greys are short. Cynthia also claims that Nathaniel said the alien was about 1 meter plus tall. This is fucking bullshit. Cynthia asked Nathaniel about the little man, and he corrected her, saying from where we were, he looked like he was about this high, and he indicated about 1 meter, but then he said we were quite a way away, so he was about our size. Charlie says, quote, Cynthia may think she's covering herself by reporting this as 1 meter plus, but Nathaniel and Guy are quite clearly not describing a little man. They said that the thing was their height, and a 12-year-old is about 5 foot tall. Next example. Cynthia says that Guy said that he could see that the little man was dressed in a black, shiny suit, like a skin diving suit. Well, what Guy actually said, he wasn't very dark, he was quite lightish, and he was very thin. Guy also did not call him a little man, but indicated that he was a head taller than himself. He also made no mention of the man's clothing, nor the color or the style. The first mention of clothing is from the grade 7 children the next day, who says that the man was all black and in black. Also, it was actually Emma that said that the man was very shiny black, and then Cynthia asked like a diving suit, and then Emma said yeah. This is fucking Ed and Lorraine Warren level bullshittery here. But I got just a few more I want to highlight, and then I'll eat a pebble and fuck off. Cynthia Hind actually claimed Headmaster Mackey had the presence of mind to get all the children back into their classroom, asking them to draw what they had seen. Wow. Well, Mackey's BBC interview makes it clear that the children made the drawings on Monday, 3 days after the event. This makes it sound like it was Mackey's idea and that he had them draw the UFOs immediately. Now, Cynthia also claimed this. I had suggested to Mr. Mackey prior to visiting the school and before the children had been interviewed that he let the children draw what they had seen. So, she has just contradicted herself here. Cynthia asked Mackey to have the children draw the UFOs. Whether they drew immediately after the event on Friday or on Monday after they had a weekend to compare notes is a significant difference. The fact that Cynthia would contradict herself within just a few weeks on this important point continues the pattern of her misquoting and exaggerating in order to add credibility to this story. And in our final example of why are you always lying, Cynthia Hind revealed in her write-up of the case in 1995 that the grade 4 children had a discussion about UFOs earlier that week, which may have influenced some of the children. She never mentions this again, as far as I know, and will later state on TV that the children had no cultural exposure to UFOs or television, which is quite obviously untrue. What a bunch of fucking bullshit. And that's really about all I can take for this video. I'm going to do one more video on this story, and then fuck UFOs. Tired of this bullshit now. I'm going to roast some ghosts or something. But in the next video, we're going to cover Johnny Mac, and how the children changed their stories 77 days later when John Mac came to Zimbabwe. And we'll also talk about some of the other kids who came out and said, yeah, we were fucking lying. We didn't see anything. But yeah, I hope you had a good time, and I hope I see you again in part 3. Now, where is my pebble? It didn't work. I'm still here. I might need to go to the hospital now. I might need a surgery. On my eyes. To sew them shut so I can stop reading fucking stupid bullshit like the Ariel School UFO story. Yep, that's it. Bye-bye.